The truth you're dodging is brutal. You're not some intricate, unfathomable being, but an open book to anyone with even a modicum of perception. Your face, your gestures, the subtle tremor in your voice, the quickening of your breath, each of these signs is a word emblazoned on your forehead, an involuntary confession of everything swirling within you. You navigate the world believing you've erected impenetrable walls, when in reality, you're as safe with the combination tattooed where everyone can see it. And what's worse, you hand over that combination willingly, daily, without realizing the devastating cost. Consider your recent interactions. How often were your emotional reactions predictable? How easy was it for someone, perhaps a colleague, a family member, or even a random stranger, to press a button and watch the spark of anger, frustration, or insecurity erupt within you? Each of these outbursts isn't an act of genuineness, as you might convince yourself, but a generous donation of power. You're handing over valuable ammunition to your adversaries, whether they're openly hostile or just silent observers, who catalog each of your weaknesses to use against you at the most opportune moment. You pride yourself on feeling deeply, on being human. What a tragic irony. In a world where strength is measured by the ability to govern one's inner turmoil, your heightened sensitivity isn't a virtue, but a fatal flaw. It's the Achilles heel you voluntarily expose in every interaction. You're a castle with all the doors and windows flung wide open, inviting invaders to plunder your most valuable treasure, your inner peace, your dignity, and your command over the situation. Consider the scenario at work. Your boss, perhaps a mediocre individual but shrewd enough to notice your reactivity, makes a disparaging remark in public. What's your instinctive response? The frantic justification, the pathetic attempt to defend yourself? Each word you utter in that defensive state confirms the criticism, validates the humiliation. You squirm under the gaze of others, proving to everyone that the blow landed squarely. Your reaction doesn't defend you, it convicts you, stamping the mark of inferiority that he wished to impose. You surrendered your power, your composure, your image as a competent professional, all in exchange for a fleeting and pointless moment of self-justification, or perhaps it's in a personal relationship. A critique, a questioning of your competence or your intentions. Your response? The impulsiveness of a cornered animal, the altered voice, the tensed body, the unfiltered words. You're not addressing the critique, you're proving its validity. By demonstrating the insecurity it tapped into, you validate the assault with your own uncontrolled reaction. It's as if the criticism were an arrow and your reaction were the movement that drives it deeper. And when a relationship ends, the pain is real, yes, but the way you express it, the begging, the pursuing, the turning yourself into a spectacle of despair, that's not proof of love. It's a public display of your lack of self-control. You become free entertainment for the one who left you, the pathetic story that will be recounted at dinners and social gatherings. You strip yourself bare emotionally before someone who has already shown they don't value you, surrendering the last vestige of your dignity in exchange for nothing. Each tear, each plea, each unanswered message is a hemorrhage of power that you willingly offer to the world that watches you with a mixture of pity and cruel amusement. You cling to the notion of emotional authenticity as if it were a badge of honor. But what is this authenticity in practice? Most of the time, it's simply the inability to manage yourself. It's allowing every impulse, every fear, every insecurity to dictate your actions and reactions. In a world where strength lies in the capacity to shape the perception of others and govern one's own internal state, being authentic in this way is the quickest route to insignificance and defeat. While you thrash in the tumultuous waters of your own emotions, believing that it makes you more human or profound, those who truly thrive are observing. They don't yell when contradicted. They speak softly, forcing others to lean in to hear them, a physical gesture of deference. They don't offer excuses when attacked. A cold, calculated stare is enough to disarm the aggressor, leaving him floundering in his own impudence. They don't beg when rejected. They simply withdraw, transforming their absence into a void that the other will feel, reevaluating what they have lost. These individuals have mastered the inconvenient truth you resist acknowledging. Composure isn't the absence of feeling, but absolute command over it. It's the aptitude to sense everything, yet choosing to display nothing that doesn't serve a strategic purpose. It's transforming emotional energy, which in you is a destructive force, into an instrument of surgical precision, a concealed weapon, unveiled only when strictly necessary and with a clear objective. Each day you postpone this transformation, each moment you allow your emotions to govern you instead of you governing them, is a day your rivals gain irreversible ground on you. While you hesitate, clinging to your sensitivity, others are fortifying themselves, learning to decipher you and leverage your own reactions against you. Vulnerability in a ruthless world isn't a virtue to be celebrated. It's planned obsolescence. You're becoming an emotional museum piece, a case study of how a lack of internal control leads to marginalization. But there's a path forward. A silent metamorphosis awaits you. It doesn't require you to extinguish your feelings, but to eradicate the version of yourself that's enslaved by them. It demands the fortitude to gaze inward with the coolness of a scientist observing a phenomenon, not with the judgment of someone ashamed of their own responses. You need to observe how your breathing quickens, how your voice wavers, how your body reacts under duress. These are data points, not moral failings. The first stride on this journey to empowerment is to create the pause, a microscopic hiatus between stimulus and response. Someone utters something that irritates you. Your instinct is to react immediately, erupt, defend yourself, halt, breathe, count 10 seconds in your mind. In that stretching silence, you'll feel the urgency of the reaction diminish. You'll sense the discomfort rise in the eyes of those who anticipated your predictable outburst. And, in that sacred space of non-reaction, you'll experience the initial taste of true power. Control, which was in the hands of whoever provoked you, instantly transfers to you. This pause is where your sovereignty is born. It's within it that you reclaim the rudder of your ship, which was adrift in emotional tempests. It's in this space that you choose, coolly and purposefully, which emotion, if any, deserves to be exhibited to the world. Most emotions don't merit such exposure. They are internal processing tools, not public spectacles for external consumption. The thesis is clear and unrelenting. Your power in the external world is directly proportional to your mastery over the internal world. The capacity to manage your reactions, to maintain composure under pressure, to select your emotional displays with surgical accuracy. This isn't merely self-mastery. It's the bedrock of genuine strength and enduring respect. It's the most brutal and valuable lesson that life and centuries of strategic wisdom can impart. You can continue being an open vault, plundered by anyone, or you can become an impenetrable fortress whose gates only open by your strategic volition. The choice is yours, but time, relentless, doesn't wait for those who hesitate to embrace their own power. That instant of silence, that deliberate pause you experienced, is more than just a simple technique. It's the chink in the armor of your programming. It's the first glimpse of uncharted territory, command over oneself. But to truly inhabit that territory, to transform the pause into sustainable power, you need to comprehend the nature of the enemy residing within you. The issue isn't simply that you react. The issue is why you react so predictably and destructively. There's a fundamental flaw, a blind spot in your perception that keeps you captive. That flaw is the deeply ingrained belief that your emotions are the most trustworthy compass, the purest expression of your being. You've been conditioned to believe that feeling is synonymous with being, that suppressing an emotion is suppressing yourself. This is the most perilous lie you've been told. Your emotions, in their raw and ungoverned state, aren't your essence. They're primal urges, remnants of an evolutionary past that prepared you to flee from predators and vie for scarce resources. On the complex chessboard of modern human interactions, these urges are shackles that bind you to mediocrity and manipulation. The concealed issue lies in your pathological reliance on external validation, disguised as authenticity. You react because you desperately seek a response from your environment. When someone criticizes you, your immediate response isn't a defense of truth, but a plea for acceptance. You crave for the other person to retract their criticism, to acknowledge your worth, to validate your existence. This craving to be seen, to be understood, to be approved, is the driving force behind many of your most detrimental emotional reactions. It's the inner child, ravenous for attention, that seizes control at the pivotal moment, sabotaging the adult you should be. This dependence creates a vicious cycle. The more you react seeking validation, the more unpredictable and unstable you appear. The more unstable you seem, the less respect you command, and the less respect you command, the more comfortable people feel criticizing, challenging, and manipulating you. Each interaction becomes a test, a silent battle for emotional supremacy, and you, disarmed by your own need to be authentic and understood, lose repeatedly. Society, in its questionable wisdom, reinforces this behavior. We are taught to express our feelings, to be open, to share our vulnerability. In controlled settings and with individuals of genuine trust, this might have its place. But on the battlefield of real life, where most interactions are transactional and where empathy is a scarce commodity, such openness is strategic suicide. You are displaying your wounds to wolves. You are handing the treasure map to pirates. You are mistaking therapy for a power strategy. The insidious issue is that you don't view your emotions as tools to be wielded, but as masters to be obeyed. You allow anger to dictate your words, fear to paralyze your actions, sadness to consume you. You are not in control. You are being controlled by chaotic internal forces that you don't comprehend and make no effort to govern. This passivity in the face of your own inner world is the root of your fragility in the external world. Machiavelli understood human nature in its most raw and pragmatic form. He did not deny the existence of passions, but saw them as forces to be manipulated, first in oneself, then in others. Your failing lies in your inability to do the same. You permit your passions to rule you, rendering yourself predictable and therefore controllable. The man who can be easily angered, easily flattered, easily intimidated, or easily moved is a pawn in the game of others. He possesses no will of his own. His will is a reaction dictated by external stimuli, your heightened sensitivity, that which you perhaps deem a noble quality, is in reality a hypersensitivity to the judgment of others. You deeply experience not only the joy or sorrow inherent in a situation, but the crushing weight of the perception that others have of you reacting to that situation. You suffer not only from the loss, but from the shame of being seen suffering. You bristle not only at the injustice, but at the humiliation of being seen as weak for not retaliating immediately. This extra layer of suffering, this constant rumination on the opinion of others, drains your vital energy and prevents you from thinking clearly. The underlying problem is that you've constructed your identity around this emotional reactivity. You see yourself as passionate, intense, as authentic. These labels have become your comfort zone, an excuse for not exercising the command that is required for true strength. You hide behind these definitions to evade the responsibility of governing your own internal state. It's easier to blame the world for your reactions than to admit that you are the architect of your own emotional turmoil. This distorted self-image prevents you from seeing the reality that genuine fortitude resides in composure under pressure, in the calculated response rather than the impulsive reaction, in the ability to observe the emotional circus of others without joining it. While you identify with your inner tempests, the world sees only someone who cannot navigate turbulent waters. Your vulnerability is not an innate character flaw. It is the result of conditioning and of choice. The choice, albeit unconscious, to remain hostage to your emotions. It is the outcome of never having learned to separate the observer from the observed within yourself. You are so immersed in the drama of your emotions that you cannot step back and view them for what they are: transient data, internal information, and not the totality of your existence. Herein lies the hidden predicament. You mistake internal experience for external reality. You assume that what you feel is what the world perceives and that the world's actions justify your feelings. This fusion between your inner state and external stimuli renders you terribly susceptible. You are akin to a ship without ballast, tossed from side to side by every wave. To liberate yourself, you must dismantle this internal construct. You must cease identifying with every surge of anger or trough of sorrow. You must view these emotions as temporary visitors, not as the homeowners. You must grasp that true freedom is not the liberty to express everything you feel, but the freedom to choose how and when to articulate something, and whether expressing it is the most advantageous strategy. The inability to do so keeps you small, predictable, and easily manipulated. It is the covert problem that corrodes your foundation of power. Acknowledging it is the initial step. The next is to expose the specific manifestations of this vulnerability, the precise points where you hemorrhage power, so that you can begin to cauterize them. Now that you have glimpsed the root of the issue, the identification with emotional turmoil, and the relentless pursuit of validation, it is time to confront the concrete manifestations of this fragility. The adversary, be it a rival at work, a manipulative family member, a resentful ex-partner, or simply the indifferent masses, does not require a complex map to locate your weak spots. You display them openly, in every uncontrolled reaction, in every word spoken in the heat of the moment, in every gesture of desperation. Your weaknesses are not closely guarded secrets. They are open invitations to attack. The first and most apparent weakness is your impulsive reactivity. When provoked, criticized, or challenged, your response is almost automatic, a conditioned reflex. This lack of pause, this inability to insert a rational filter between the stimulus and the response, renders you predictable. And in the game of power, predictability is the antithesis of strength. Whoever knows precisely how you will react to a given action has control over you. They can orchestrate situations to extract the desired response, be it anger, fear, frustration, or submission. Your impulsiveness is the string they pull to make you dance to their tune. Consider the times when a criticism, however unfounded, caused you to erupt in justifications or attacks. You were not defending the truth. You were reacting to the sting of the criticism, to the threat to your fragile self-image. This reaction validates the criticism in the eyes of others. If he is reacting like this, they think, there must be some truth to what was said. Your outburst does not silence the critic. It amplifies their voice, making them the center of attention, and you, the pathetic spectacle of your own insecurity. Your reactivity transforms gnats into elephants, small stones into avalanches. Another glaring weakness is your need for approval. You yearn to be liked, accepted, validated. This need renders you susceptible to cheap flattery and the fear of disapproval. Astute individuals perceive this and use approval as a bargaining chip. They may praise you to get what they want, or withdraw approval to punish you and force you to conform. Your desire to be seen in a positive light makes you an easy target for manipulation, as you are willing to compromise your own interests to maintain the image that you believe others wish to see. This need for approval manifests in your difficulty saying no, in establishing clear boundaries, in defending your own interests when they conflict with those of others. You dread confrontation because you fear the disapproval that may result from it. You prefer to swallow toad's seed ground and accumulate resentment rather than risk losing the sympathy of others. This is the weakness of the lamb trying to please the wolf in the hope of not being devoured. The wolf, of course, only sees your hesitation as a sign of weakness and advances. Emotional transparency is another critical flaw. You wear your face as a billboard, displaying every emotion that passes through you. Your disappointment, your anger, your fear, your joy, it is all there, visible to anyone who bothers to observe. This lack of a controlled mask makes you legible and therefore vulnerable. People with less noble intentions can read your emotional state and adjust their approach to exploit it. If they see fear, they can intimidate you. If they see anger, they can provoke you further. If they see joy, they can try to take advantage of your good mood. Machiavelli taught that appearances are often more critical than reality. The wise prince learns to feign and dissimulate when necessary. You, in contrast, insist on being authentic and transparent, freely giving away valuable information about your inner state. Such openness isn't a virtue in a competitive environment. It's a strategic blunder. It's akin to playing poker by showing your cards every round. You might possess a strong hand, but if everyone knows what you hold, you'll lose. Your susceptibility to criticism is a constant chink in your armor. A word, a glance, a tone of voice, anything can trigger a painful reaction within you. This hypersensitivity not only causes you needless suffering, but also signals to others that criticism is an effective tool to destabilize you. Those who wish to control you will quickly learn that a well-aimed barb is sufficient to unnerve you, force you to defend yourself, or even make you retreat. Your thin skin is an invitation for others to test your boundaries, prodding you to see when you'll finally break. The inability to manage disappointment and rejection is another weakness that's easily exploited. When things don't go according to plan, or when someone rebuffs you, your reaction tends to be disproportionate. You sink into gloom, self-pity, or become resentful and bitter. This failure to process setbacks with resilience renders you susceptible to being manipulated by the promise of success or the dread of failure. People can leverage the prospect of a reward to make you act against your better judgment, or the menace of rejection to force you into compliance. The craving to be understood is a subtle but potent trap. You expend energy attempting to elucidate your motives, intentions, and feelings to people who have no genuine interest in comprehending you. This need stems from the misguided belief that if others only understood you, they would accept and validate you. However, more often than not, your attempts at explanation are perceived as weakness, as an effort to justify yourself or manipulate others' perceptions. A strong individual feels no compulsion to be understood. They act according to their own principles and purposes, allowing others to draw their own conclusions. Your excessive explanations only furnish others with more material to dissect and wield against you. Finally, your identification with the role of victim is a crippling flaw. When things go awry or when you feel attacked, your inclination is to see yourself as the victim of circumstances or the actions of others. This victim mentality prevents you from taking responsibility for your own reactions and from viewing situations objectively. Instead of strategically analyzing what transpired and how to respond effectively, you wallow in self-pity and blame. This posture attracts predators, as the victim is the perfect target. No one fears someone who views themselves as powerless. These frailties, impulsive reactivity, the need for approval, emotional transparency, sensitivity to criticism, difficulty with disappointment, rejection, the craving to be understood, and the victim mindset are the places where your power ebbs away. They are the cracks in your defenses that your adversaries, both internal and external, exploit relentlessly. Acknowledging the depth and breadth of these shortcomings isn't an exercise in self-flagellation, but an essential act of strategic realism. You cannot defend a castle whose vulnerabilities you refuse to see. The next step is to grasp the nature of the battlefield, the true face of human behavior, so you can begin to construct a new foundation for your power. Exposing your weaknesses has been a necessary, albeit painful, exercise. You've identified the spots where your armor yields, where the lifeblood of your power seeps onto the ground, nourishing the strength of those around you. But to truly fortify yourself, to transform these vulnerabilities into strengths, you must take an even more arduous step. Accept the unforgiving nature of the stage where this battle is waged. This is the initial fracture, the moment you relinquish comforting illusions and confront the stark, unvarnished truth about human behavior. The perspective you likely harbor, the one that renders you vulnerable, is that people are fundamentally good, or at least well-intentioned. You believe in automatic reciprocity, in gratitude as a driving force, in empathy as a universal bond. This belief, however beautiful it may appear in philosophical treatises or inspirational speeches, is a slow poison in the real world. It leaves you unprepared, naive, and at the mercy of those who operate under a completely different set of rules. The Machiavellian outlook, which you must now internalize, isn't inherently pessimistic. It's pragmatic. It observes people not as they should be, but as they truly are. And observation across the ages reveals an uncomfortable truth. People are, for the most most part, ungrateful, fickle, pretenders and dissemblers, fearful of peril and greedy for gain. This isn't a moral condemnation, but a functional assessment. It's the acknowledgement that absent strong deterrents, such as fear of punishment, self-interest will nearly always prevail. Reflect on your own experiences. How often did promised gratitude vanish into thin air as soon as you were no longer of service? How often did sworn allegiance crumble at the first opportunity for personal enrichment? How often did words of support prove hollow when you needed genuine assistance? These aren't exceptions, they're the norm. People act primarily motivated by what benefits them, by what lessens their fear and increases their pleasure or security. Love, genuine loyalty, selfless empathy, they exist, yes, but they are rare, fragile, and cannot be the bedrock of your strategy for survival and advancement. Here's the paradigm shift. You must cease interpreting the actions of others through the lens of your own intentions and begin interpreting them through the lens of their self-interest. When someone criticizes you publicly, it's not necessarily because they believe you are incompetent. It could be to promote themselves at your expense, to deflect attention from their own shortcomings, or to probe your limits and see if you pose a threat. When someone flatters you, it's not necessarily out of genuine admiration. It might be to soften you up, to extract a favor, or to conceal a less than honorable motive. Accepting this reality doesn't mean becoming cynical or distrustful of everyone. It means becoming clear-eyed. It means understanding that every interaction is a potential power play, where each individual is, consciously or unconsciously, seeking to safeguard or further their own interests. The person who grasps this isn't easily offended. They analyze. They don't react emotionally. They assess the other person's maneuver and plot their counter-move. Your past vulnerability, your craving for approval, your emotional transparency, all of this flourished in a soil of delusion. You believed that by being good or authentic, the world would respond with kindness and acceptance. You expected your feelings to be respected, your intentions to be understood. This expectation is your downfall. The world doesn't care about your feelings or intentions. It cares about what you represent to it in terms of power, utility, or menace. The Machiavellian viewpoint teaches that you should worry less about the inherent morality of others' actions and more about the effectiveness and consequences of those actions. What matters isn't why your colleague tried to sabotage you, but how they did it and how you can neutralize it and ensure it doesn't happen again. The focus shifts from moral judgment to strategic analysis. This paradigm shift is liberating because it removes the burden of personal disappointment. When you understand that ingratitude is the norm, gratitude becomes an unexpected bonus, not an entitlement. When you understand that pretense is a common tool, honesty becomes a rare and potent tactic to be employed with caution. You stop taking things personally because you understand that most actions aren't about you, but about the other person's self-interest. Fear, in the Machiavellian view, is a more dependable motivator than love. Love is volatile, contingent on mutual benefit and easily broken. Fear, however, is constant, rooted in the aversion to pain and loss. People may cease to love you when you are no longer useful to them, but they will continue to fear you as long as you have the power to inflict harm or withhold benefits. This isn't a call to become a cruel tyrant, but to understand that respect, which is a form of fear of the consequences of disrespecting you, is a more solid foundation for influence than mere affection. Your sensitivity to criticism, for example, diminishes drastically when you realize that criticism often isn't an objective assessment of your performance, but an attempt by the critic to feel superior, to diminish you in order to elevate themselves. Seeing criticism as a maneuver, rather than as a painful truth about yourself, you can observe it with detachment, analyzing the motivation behind it instead of drowning in the hurt it causes. This new perspective requires you to reassess all your relationships. Who are the people in your life who act out of self-interest, even if veiled in benevolence? Who flatters you when they need something and ignores you when they don't? Who criticizes you to feel better about themselves? Identifying these patterns without moral condemnation, but with strategic clarity, is vital. The initial rupture marks the end of strategic innocence. It's the moment you cease expecting the world to be fair, people to be selfless, and your good intentions to be automatically recognized and rewarded. It's the instant you accept that the world is a competitive arena where might and cunning are often more prized than sheer virtue. This isn't a philosophy of despair, but one of empowerment. By perceiving the world as it truly is, you become capable of navigating it effectively. You stop tilting at windmills and begin crafting strategies grounded in reality. You quit being a victim, surprised by the perfidy of others, and start anticipating and neutralizing their maneuvers. A Machiavellian perspective on human behavior becomes the bedrock upon which you'll build your new identity. It's the lens through which you'll view the world, and this vision, however harsh, will render you unshakable. It will prepare you for the next phase, the forging of your new self, an archetype of cold rationality and earned respect. You have stared into the abyss of human nature, the chilling realization that self-interest is the prevailing current transparency, and emotional predictability, your bankruptcy. This insight, however severe, shouldn't paralyze you, but rather propel you forward. It's the fire in the forge where your new self will be shaped. The man you once were, reactive, vulnerable, craving approval, cannot survive in the world you now see with Machiavellian clarity. It's time to forge the archetype that will thrive, the rational, composed, respected, and unwavering individual. This new self isn't a discovery, but a deliberate creation. You won't find it within yourself. You will construct it, piece by piece, with relentless discipline and strategic purpose. Think of it as armor forged from the most resilient steel, designed not to conceal who you are, but to safeguard who you will become and to project the image you desire the world to see. Rationality is the backbone of this archetype. It supersedes the emotional turmoil that once governed your actions. Instead of reacting based on how you feel, you will act based on what you think. Each situation will be analyzed dispassionately, weighing the facts, assessing the risks, and calculating the most advantageous move. Your emotions don't vanish, but are relegated to their proper place, internal data to be processed, not commands to be obeyed. Anger becomes energy to be channeled strategically. Fear becomes a signal to evaluate danger with objectivity. Joy becomes a tool to be displayed or concealed as needed. Rationality is your compass in a sea of others' irrationality. Composure is the outward manifestation of this rationality. It's not the absence of feeling, but absolute mastery over its expression. It's the ability to maintain poise under pressure, to exhibit a calm and controlled exterior, even when chaos reigns within. Composure confounds your adversaries as they expect the predictable reaction you once delivered. When they encounter only an impenetrable wall of calm, their own aggression or manipulation loses its impact. Composure projects an aura of command and power that few dare challenge lightly. It renders you unreadable, an enigma that both intrigues and intimidates. The respect this new self inspires isn't the respect born of popularity or affection, but the respect that arises from the acknowledgement of your strength and self-mastery. People will respect you not because they like you, but because they cannot break you. They will respect your capacity to remain calm when they are in a panic, your ability to think clearly when they are overwhelmed by emotion. This respect is more enduring and more valuable than any fleeting affection. It's earned on the battlefield of daily interactions, consistently demonstrating that you are an individual who governs himself and therefore cannot be easily governed by others. Steadfastness is the natural consequence of rationality, composure, and respect. You become like a rock against which the waves of criticism, provocation, and adversity crash harmlessly. The attacks that once staggered you now find you firm. The attempts at manipulation that once controlled you are now seen with clarity and neutralized with ease. Your internal stability projects an external fortitude that repels mediocrity and attracts opportunity. You become a point of reference in a chaotic world, someone others look to for stability and direction, even if they don't understand the source of your strength. This archetype of the new you requires you to slay the old version of yourself, the one who was easily offended, who sought validation in every glance, who allowed every emotion to dictate their course. This death is not literal but symbolic, the demise of your former fragile and reactive identity. It's a necessary sacrifice for the birth of a more powerful and effective being. The construction of this archetype begins internally. You must reprogram your automatic responses. Where before there was an emotional reaction, now there must be a pause and a rational analysis. Where before there was a need for justification, now there must be strategic silence or a calculated irresponse. Where before there was a search for approval, now there must be a cold indifference to the opinions of others that do not serve your purposes. Externally, you need to start projecting this new image. Your body language must reflect calmness and control. Your tone of voice should be firm and measured, never hysterical or pleading. Your words should be few and chosen with precision, carrying the weight of deliberation, not the lightness of impulsiveness. You don't need to announce your transformation. Let it manifest itself in your actions and in the way others begin to react to you. Think of the Machiavellian prince. He was not loved by all, but he was feared and respected. He understood the importance of virtue, not moral virtue, but the capacity to act with effectiveness and determination to achieve his goals, adapting to circumstances and controlling fortuna, chance. Your new self must embody this virtue. It must be able to navigate human complexities with cunning and resilience, using reason as a guide and coolness as a shield. This archetype is not a prison, but a liberation. By mastering your emotions and projecting an image of controlled strength, you free yourself from the tyranny of other people's opinions and the bondage of your own impulsive reactions. You become the master of your own destiny, able to act in the world strategically and effectively, rather than being swept away by the currents of emotional chaos. The journey to becoming this archetype will not be easy. There will be relapses, moments when the old programming will try to regain control. But each time you choose the pause over the reaction, the analysis over the emotion, the silence over the justification, fortification, you will be strengthening the foundations of your new self. You will be forging the armor, sharpening the blade of your rationality, and becoming the unwavering being who inspires respect and commands their own destiny. The next step is to arm this archetype with the silent tactics that will allow you to navigate and influence the world around you. Having forged the archetype of the rational, cold, and unwavering being is the first crucial step. You have built the internal fortress, the citadel of your own mind. But a fortress, however impenetrable it may be, needs strategies to interact with the outside world, to defend itself from attacks, and to expand its influence without resorting to brute force or open aggression. The most effective tactics in this game of silent power are not screams or ostentatious displays of strength, but rather subtle psychological maneuvers, invisible to the untrained eye, but devastating in their effect. These are the silent strategies. Of psychological dominance, sharp tools forged in the same relentless logic that shaped your new self, deeply rooted in the Machiavellian understanding of human nature. They operate in the realm of perception, expectation, and information control, both what you reveal and what you conceal. The first and perhaps most powerful of these tactics is strategic silence. Not the silence of hesitation or fear, but the deliberate silence of the observer who chooses not to react. When someone attacks you, criticizes you, provokes you, the expectation is that you will respond, that you will justify yourself, that you will explode. Your old programming compelled you to do so, but the new self, the unwavering being, finds strength in the absence of an immediate response. Silence creates a vacuum. It forces the other person to fill it, often revealing more of their intentions or insecurities in the process. Your silence, when everyone expects noise, projects a calmness that is interpreted as confidence and control. It destabilizes the aggressor, who loses the foothold of your predictable reaction. Silence transforms the attempted attack into an embarrassing monologue for the one who initiated it. It is the refusal to participate in the game on the other's terms. It is the demonstration that you are not easily moved, that your emotions are not buttons to be pressed by just anyone. Strategic silence is the first line of defense and a powerful tool for psychological counterattack. It communicates, without saying a word, that you are in control of the situation and of your own response. Closely linked to silence is cold, analytical observation. Freed from the turmoil of your own emotional responses, you can now dedicate yourself to observing the world around you with the clarity of a military strategist studying the battlefield. People, as Machiavelli noted, reveal much about themselves in their actions and reactions, especially under pressure. Watch their body language, tone of voice, the words they choose and those they avoid. Note the inconsistencies between what they say and what they do. Observe what motivates them: fear, greed, envy, the need for approval. Your own past experience as an open book has taught you to read the signs. Now, you use this skill not to feel exposed, but to understand the landscape and pinpoint the vulnerabilities of others. This observation isn't for moral judgment, but for data collection. Every interaction is an opportunity to learn about others, their patterns, their weaknesses. This knowledge is power, and it is acquired quietly, while others are busy displaying their own frailties. Managing appearances is paramount. Machiavelli insisted that a prince must appear to possess certain qualities, even if he doesn't fully embody them, because perception trumps reality in the minds of the masses. For you, this means strictly controlling the image you project. Your coolness and rationality should be evident in your composure, in your steady gaze, in your measured tone. You don't need to pretend to be something you're not, but you must carefully select which aspects of yourself the world will see. Vulnerability, insecurity, neediness, these are facets that must be kept strictly private. Project calmness, confidence, competence, and above all, control. Your demeanor should be that of someone who is not easily rattled, someone who thinks before acting, someone who possesses a hidden depth that few can penetrate. This isn't deception, it's self-preservation and the strategic projection of power. Calculated. Indifference is a potent weapon. When someone seeks an emotional response from you, whether to manipulate you, provoke you, or simply to feel important, the most disarming reply is the absence of any emotional reaction. Not genuine apathy, but the semblance of indifference. Your former partner tries to incite jealousy, a neutral expression, perhaps a slight nod and a change of subject. Your colleague tries to annoy you with gossip, a distant look focused on your work. This calculated indifference denies the other person the reward they seek, your emotional reaction. It leaves them powerless, unsure how to proceed. Indifference projects a clear message. Your behavior has no power to affect me. You are not important enough to elicit an emotional response from me. This message, delivered silently, is overwhelmingly powerful. The strategic use of emotion, paradoxically, is also part of this silent arsenal. Once you master your emotions, you can choose when and how to display them, not as an impulsive reaction, but as a calculated tool. A controlled demonstration of frustration can motivate a sluggish team. A brief and calculated moment of apparent vulnerability can disarm an opponent and cause them to reveal information. affection. A measured display of joy can cement a temporary alliance. The key is that these displays are rare, intentional, and serve a purpose. They are not emotional leaks. They are controlled releases, used with the precision of a surgeon. The scarcity of these displays makes them all the more impactful, as they come from someone who typically keeps their emotions under tight rein. Finally, the art of non-commitment. In a world where many feel the need to have an opinion on everything, to take sides immediately, to declare their intentions aloud, the ability to remain ambiguous and uncommitted is an immense strategic advantage. Do not reveal your plans before they are ripe. Do not take sides in others' disputes unless it directly serves your interests. Keep your options open. This tactic makes you less predictable and more difficult to manipulate, as your adversaries cannot anticipate your moves or use your commitments against you. Strength lies in flexibility and adaptability, and premature commitment is the enemy of flexibility. These strategies, strategic silence, cold observation, appearance management, calculated indifference, strategic use of emotion, and the art of non-commitment, are the silent instruments of your psychological dominance. They don't demand that you shout louder or resort to brute force. They require discipline, self-mastery, and a keen understanding of human nature. By mastering them, you transform your interactions from emotional minefields into chessboards where you play with precision and purpose. You cease being the open vault and become the strategist operating in the shadows, moving your pieces with deliberate intent, while others flounder in the predictability of their own reactions. The practical application of these tactics, especially indifference, is where your newfound power will manifest most visibly. Mastering the silent strategies is what transforms the inner fortress into an active force in the world. Among these tactics, calculated indifference emerges as one of the most effective for shaping the social dynamics around you. It's not about shutting off your emotions, that would be impossible and counterproductive, but about rigorously controlling which emotions, if any, you allow others to perceive. It's the art of not granting the world the satisfaction of seeing that it has affected you. Indifference, when applied with surgical precision, is a direct strike at the fundamental human need to be seen and to elicit a response in others. Most people operate by seeking validation, recognition, or failing that, at least a reaction. Any reaction that confirms their existence and their impact. When you deny them that response, when you meet provocation with composure, criticism with a distant gaze, the attempt at manipulation with a polished silence, you are starving the interaction of oxygen. You are disarming the other person by depriving them of the emotional reward they expected. Think of a co-worker who tries to undermine your confidence with snide remarks. Your natural reaction would be to defend yourself, justify yourself, maybe even lash out in return. This is exactly what they anticipate and desire. Your reaction validates their attempt, gives them power over your emotional state. Now picture the same scenario, but you respond with a neutral expression, a slight raise of your eyebrows, and then calmly return to your work. No anger, no justification, just a silent demonstration that their words lack sufficient weight to penetrate your composure. What happens? They are left without solid ground. Their attempt has failed. They feel powerless, perhaps even foolish, for having invested energy in an attack that yielded no effect. Your indifference compels them to confront the irrelevance of their own action. In personal relationships, calculated indifference can be a potent tool for rebalancing power. If you were the one who begged, chased, or displayed desperation after a breakup, you surrendered all your leverage. The other person felt validated, perhaps even flattered by your pain. Now, imagine that instead you respond to the rejection with dignity and an apparent absence of visible suffering. You don't plead, don't call incessantly, don't post cryptic messages on social media. You simply move on, focusing on yourself, projecting an image of someone who has not been shattered by the loss. This confuses the other person. They expected your pain as proof of their worth. Your indifference suggests that the value they thought they possessed wasn't so great after all. This may sow a seed of doubt in them, perhaps even regret. Your indifference forces them to question their own decision and their own impact. Indifference is also crucial for dealing with emotional manipulation in family or social circles. Family members who use guilt, emotional blackmail, or drama to control you lose their leverage when your emotional reactions are no longer guaranteed. They expect you to feel guilty, anxious, or annoyed, and they use these emotions against you. When you respond with calmness, with cold logic, or with a simple "I understand your point of view" without getting caught up in the emotional whirlwind, you are withdrawing energy from their game. You are not validating the manipulation attempt with an emotional response. You are demonstrating that their tactics no longer work on you. This forces them to change their strategy or give up. Most of the time, they give up, as emotional manipulation is exhausting when it finds no echo. Practicing indifference doesn't equate to becoming robotic or unfeeling. It signifies mastering the art of the calculated response. Instead of reacting impulsively, you respond deliberately and frequently. The most effective response is the absence of any visible emotional reaction. This demands a profound level of self-mastery. You will feel the the urge to react, the anger bubbling, the insecurity screaming, but the pause you've learned to create is your sanctuary. Within it, you choose indifference as both your armor and your weapon. Strategic indifference has several potent psychological impacts on others. It creates uncertainty. When you don't react as expected, people become unsure of what you're thinking or feeling. This ambiguity can breed unease and even fear, as they can't read you. It projects strength. The capability to remain composed and unaffected under pressure is universally seen as a sign of strength and command. Your indifference communicates that you are unshakable. It devalues the other's action. By withholding an emotional response, you implicitly convey that the other person's action or words weren't significant enough to warrant your emotional energy. This can be incredibly demoralizing for someone who was trying to provoke you. It increases your perceived value. People tend to value what is scarce. When your attention and emotional reactions become rare and measured, they become more valuable in the eyes of others. People might start trying harder to elicit a reaction from you, to crack your indifference, which ironically amplifies your power over them. It forces the other to reflect. Your indifference can compel the other person to look inward and recognize the inadequacy of their own tactics. They might begin to question why their attempts at provocation or manipulation aren't working on you, leading them to reassess their own approach. To apply indifference effectively, practice the following. Maintain physical composure, relaxed body, upright posture, steady but not aggressive eye contact. Avoid fidgety gestures or exaggerated facial expressions. Use silence to your advantage. After a provocative comment, pause longer than normal before responding or not responding. Respond with facts, not feelings. If you must respond, stick to objective facts and avoid any emotionally charged language. Change the subject. An effective way to demonstrate indifference is to simply steer the conversation to another topic, signaling that the previous subject no longer warrants your attention. Focus on something else. Under verbal assault, divert your gaze to something in the environment, as if the provocation were a minor distraction from something more important. Use minimal responses and I see a slight nod. Responses that acknowledge you've heard, but don't indicate you've been affected. Calculated indifference isn't a permanent state, but a stance to be strategically adopted. You use it as a shield against attacks and as a tool to control social dynamics. It requires consistent practice and overcoming your old programming. There will be moments when the urge to react is overwhelming, but each time you choose indifference, you are reinforcing the new archetype you are building, demonstrating to yourself and the world that you are the master of your own emotional universe. This mastery is the foundation for mastering your own. Reactive instinct, the subject of the next stage of your transformation. Calculated indifference, that wall of calm you've erected between yourself and the external chaos, is a formidable defense. But true mastery doesn't just reside in projecting that image. It resides in mastering the source of internal chaos that for so long made you vulnerable. The most persistent adversary isn't out there in the words or actions of others. It resides within you, in your own reactive instinct. It's this primal force, this biological programming for fight or flight, that drives you to lash out, to justify yourself, to plead, to cower, to react in predictable and self-destructive ways. Mastering this instinct is the pinnacle of self-command, the achievement that transforms you from a being merely controlled into a being who controls. It's what allows you to not just appear unshakable, but to be unshakable at your core. While indifference is the armor, mastering the reactive instinct is the discipline of the warrior who wears it, ensuring that no internal tremor betrays the external solidity. Your reactive instinct is a relic from primitive times, useful when the threat was a physical predator. Today, however, most threats are social, psychological, or verbal. And the instinctive response, the racing heart, the muscle tension, the surge of adrenaline, the urge to attack or flee, is disproportionate and counterproductive. It clouds your judgment, forces you to act rashly, and surrenders your power to the situation or the person who triggered it. It's the beast within responding to a complex world with the crude tools of the jungle. To master this beast, you must first acknowledge it, sense the initial spark. It's the knot in your stomach. When criticism strikes, the heat rising up your neck at a taunt, the tremor in your hands when insecurity is touched. These are the warning signs, the first stirrings of the reactive instinct awakening. Before you ignored these signals or were swept away by them, now you observe them with the same detached analysis with which you observe others' behavior. They are not you, they are merely sensations, physiological data indicating that the ancient reaction program is attempting to initiate. The pause you introduce is the battleground. In this microscopic space between stimulus and instinctive response, you wage the silent war against your own programming. It's here that awareness must intervene. The reactive impulse surges, the urge to shout, to defend yourself, to weep. But you, the new rational self, observe it. You are not that impulse. You are the observer watching the impulse. This detachment is crucial. You're not trying to suppress an essential part of yourself. You're choosing not to be controlled by an outdated program. Mastery comes not from forceful repression, which only builds pressure, pressure, but from conscious substitution. Instead of allowing the reactive instinct to dictate your action, you select a deliberate strategic response. Is the impulse to scream? Your choice is calm silence. Is the impulse to justify yourself? Your choice is an impassive stare. Is the impulse to beg? Your choice is to withdraw with dignity. Each time you choose the strategic response over the instinctive reaction, you weaken the old program and strengthen the new. This is a process of relentless reconditioning. Your brain and body have been trained for years, perhaps decades, to react in a certain way. Changing this requires repetition, constant vigilance, and a tolerance for initial discomfort. The first time you react with indifference instead of rage, you'll feel the energy of suppressed anger bubbling up. The first time you remain silent instead of justifying yourself, you'll feel the urge to speak, the need to be understood. These feelings are the death throes of the old self, fighting to maintain control. Do not fear them nor yield to them. Observe them, acknowledge them, and then reinforce your conscious choice. With practice, the pause becomes more natural, the observation more automatic, and the strategic choice quicker. The neural pathway of the impulsive reaction weakens, and the pathway of the controlled response strengthens. Eventually, the strategic response becomes your new automatic reaction. You'll no longer have to actively fight the reactive impulse. It simply won't arise with the same force, or it will be so rapidly intercepted and redirected that it becomes harmless. When you reach this level of command over your own reactive instinct, you not only appear invincible, you become invincible. In the most crucial sense, no one can use it against you by exploiting your emotional reactions. Your predictability, your greatest vulnerability, vanishes. You become an enigma. Picture the scene: a high-pressure situation where everyone around you is succumbing to panic, rage, or fear. Voices escalate, accusations fly, emotional chaos reigns, and at the center of it, you remain composed. Your voice is low and steady, your actions measured. You don't join the hysteria, you observe it. You don't react to provocations, you ignore them or diffuse them with cold logic. Your self-possession amidst the storm projects an overwhelming force. While others drown in their emotions, you navigate with clarity. This ability to maintain composure and rationality when others are losing control is perceived as raw power. People project onto it their own fantasies of strength and control. They see in you what they aspire to be, someone who is not a slave to their impulses. This projection breeds respect, admiration, and, crucially, a hesitation to challenge you. Why attack someone you can't rattle? It's a waste of energy. You become, like the Sphinx, silent, imposing, observing the world with unfathomable wisdom. People try to decipher you, searching for a crack in your armor, a clue about what motivates you or what affects you. And when they find nothing but controlled composure, they project their own uncertainties and fears onto you. You're perceived. Invincibility arises from your emotional inscrutability. This mastery does not mean you will never again feel anger, fear, or sadness. It means that these feelings will no longer have the power to dictate your actions. You may feel anger simmering, but you will choose to channel that energy into strategic action instead of a destructive outburst. You may feel fear, but you will choose to analyze it rationally and act despite it rather than be paralyzed by it. You may feel sadness, but you will choose to process it in private rather than display it as a sign of weakness. Machiavelli valued the prince's ability to adapt his nature to circumstances, to be a lion and a fox as needed. This adaptability is impossible if you are rigidly controlled by your instincts. Mastering your reactive instinct is what gives you the flexibility to choose the most effective response in any situation, rather than being forced into an automatic reaction. It is what allows you to be calm when everyone expects rage, or to act decisively when everyone is paralyzed by fear. The journey to mastering your reactive instinct is ongoing. It demands constant self-awareness, unwavering discipline, and a willingness to face the discomfort of breaking old patterns. But the reward is immeasurable. Freedom from the tyranny of your own emotions, the ability to operate in the world with clarity and purpose, and the projection of a silent strength that inspires respect and makes you seem, and in many ways become, invincible. This inner fortitude is the foundation of strategic persistence, the ability to stand firm even when the external world crumbles, which we will explore next. You have silenced the internal clamor, subdued the reactive animal that clamored for control. This victory over yourself is the bedrock, but the external world, the stage where you must perform, rarely offers a scene of calm and predictability. It is by nature chaotic, filled with uncontrollable variables, with unexpected blows of fortuna, as Machiavelli called her, that unpredictable force that can elevate or destroy the best-laid plans. It is in this whirlwind that your newfound strength will be truly tested. It is here that strategic persistence becomes not an option, but the only guarantee of survival and advancement. The persistence you must cultivate is not the blind stubbornness of the fool who insists on a path doomed to failure. It is not the empty hope of the dreamer who expects things to improve on their own. Strategic persistence is the calculated resilience of the strategist who, even in the face of setback, maintains focus on the ultimate goal, adapts their methods, and continues moving forward with relentless determination. It is the capacity to absorb the blow, analyze the damage, and adjust course without emotionally disintegrating or abandoning the fight. Your command over your reactive instinct is what makes this persistence attainable. The person who is a slave to their emotions collapses under pressure. Disappointment paralyzes them, fear makes them retreat, anger leads them to thoughtless actions that worsen the situation. They are a leaf in the wind of chaos, but you, having subdued these internal forces, are no longer hostage to them. When Fortuna strikes a blow, you will feel the impact, yes, but you will not be swept away by the wave of despair or panic that would destroy the average person. Your mind will remain clear, your capacity for analysis intact. Machiavelli observed that Fortuna governs half of our actions, but the other half is left for us to govern with our virtue. This virtue, this strength and ability to adapt, is the essence of strategic persistence. We cannot control the chaos that the world throws at us, but we can control how we respond to it. We can choose not to be passive victims, but active agents who find a path through the storm, even when it seems impossible. When a plan fails, when a project collapses, when a strategic relationship crumbles, the instinctive reaction is discouragement, blame on oneself or others, the urge to give up. The old self would drown in this tide of negative emotions, but the new self, the rational being, views the setback as data. It is not a personal catastrophe, but an obstacle to be overcome, a problem to be solved. The question is not, why did this happen to me, but what can I learn from this? How can I adapt? What is the next strategic step? Strategic persistence demands a long-term vision. You aren't striving for fleeting victories or instant gratification. You are constructing something enduring, your standing, your sway, your legacy. This implies that short-term setbacks cannot derail your journey. They are merely detours, lessons learned, opportunities to refine your approach. The ability to keep your gaze fixed on the horizon, even when the ground beneath your feet trembles, is the hallmark of a true strategist. External turmoil, ironically, can be your ally. While most people are panicking, paralyzed by uncertainty, and overwhelmed by their emotions, you, with your composure and rationality, stand out. Amidst the pandemonium, your clear mind and your capacity to act deliberately render you a beacon. It is in these moments that opportunities arise for those who are prepared to spot them and capitalize on them. While others lament, you are analyzing, plotting, and positioning yourself. Strategic persistence also involves the ability to endure the solitude and isolation that often accompany the path of strength. Not everyone will comprehend your choices, your stoicism, your resolve. Many will prefer the comfortable company of mediocrity and emotional reactivity. There will be times when you feel alone in your discipline and in your vision, but the approval of others is no longer your compass. Your compass is your objective, your strategy, and your own internal conviction. The strength to persist comes from within, not from external applause. Machiavelli advised the prince to be resolute in his decisions once made. Hesitation and inconstancy project weakness. Strategic persistence is the embodiment of this resolution. Once you set your course, you follow it with determination, adjusting the sails as the winds shift, but never abandoning the ship. This steadfastness, this refusal to be diverted by hardship, inspires confidence in those who depend on you and instills apprehension in those who oppose you. Your capacity to remain composed under fire, to think clearly amidst chaos, to adapt to setbacks without losing focus. This is what projects the image of invincibility we discussed. It is not that you never fail or never face difficulties. It is that when it happens, you do not disintegrate. You absorb the blow, learn, and move forward. This resilience is more impressive and more intimidating than any ostentatious display of power in times of calm. Strategic persistence requires you to cultivate a tolerance for discomfort and uncertainty. Chaos is inherently unsettling. It challenges your sense of control and security, but you have learned to find stability within yourself. You do not need the external world to be in order for your internal world to be calm. Your strength emanates from your capacity to maintain internal order regardless of external turmoil. This is the ultimate test of your new self. Anyone can be strong when conditions are favorable. True strength is revealed when fortune turns her back, when plans go. Corrosive when adversaries strike unexpectedly. It is in these moments that your strategic persistence, fueled by your rationality and emotional mastery, will set you apart from the masses. You will not be the victim of chaos, but the navigator who finds a path through it, emerging stronger and more determined on the other side. Persistence is not merely holding on. It is remaining strong, adapting, and continuing to advance step by step through any adversity that life presents you. It is the guarantee that, as long as you do not give up, you will not be defeated. You navigated the chaos, not as a casualty swept away by the currents, but as a mariner who discovered the compass within himself. Strategic persistence was not merely a tactic for coping with the external world. It was the manifestation of your triumph in the internal battle, proof that you subdued the reactive instinct that once controlled you. The path was arduous, demanding the symbolic demise of the one you were, the vulnerable, reactive being, craving approval. But this demise was necessary for the birth of the sovereign who now resides within you. Feel the weight of this transformation. It is not the weight of sorrow for the loss of the former self, but the weight of your own sovereignty. You are no longer a vault with the combination tattooed on your forehead, legible to anyone. You are an impenetrable fortress whose gates only open by your deliberate will. Your emotions, once tyrannical masters, are now loyal subjects, tools at your disposal to be wielded with surgical precision or held in silence when they do not serve your purpose. You didn't eliminate your emotions. You mastered them. Anger may still flare, but now its energy you channel into strategic action, not an explosion that devours you. Fear might try to creep in, but it's now a signal to assess danger with detached rationality, not a force that paralyzes. Sadness may knock at your door, but it's now an internal experience to process in private, not a public display that exposes your vulnerability. You feel everything, but you choose what the world sees, and more importantly, what it doesn't. This is the genuine liberty that Machiavelli understood. Not the freedom to do as you please without limitations, but the freedom that stems from self-mastery, from the ability to rule yourself with the same steadfastness that a wise prince governs his state. You are no longer a slave to your passions or the opinions of others. You are the architect of your responses, the sovereign of your own inner realm. The respect you command now isn't the respect born of affection or popularity, but the respect that emanates from your quiet strength, your unshakability. People sense the shift within you. They perceive that the tactics that worked before, the criticism, the taunts, the emotional manipulation, now glance off a polished, impenetrable surface. Your composure amid chaos, your capacity to think clearly when others are in a frenzy, your refusal to be dragged into the drama of others, all of this projects an aura of power that is both alluring and intimidating. Your silence has become more articulate than the impassioned speeches of others. Your calculated indifference is more disarming than any direct assault. Your poise under duress is the most compelling evidence of your inner fortitude. You move through the world with the stillness of one who possesses secrets, with the assurance of one who doesn't need external validation, with the resolve of one who governs themselves. You no longer seek approval, you command respect. You don't react impulsively, you respond strategically. You are not transparent in your vulnerability, you are deliberate in your presentation. You are not a victim of circumstance, you are an agent who shapes their own destiny. This is your new state. It's not a final destination, but a continuous state of being that demands constant vigilance and relentless practice. The world will continue to test you, fortune will continue to hurl her challenges, but now you possess the tools and the mindset to confront them. You have the rationality to analyze, the coolness to maintain composure, the indifference to disarm, the command over your reactive instincts to choose your response, and the strategic persistence to keep advancing, no matter what. The choice you made when embarking on this journey, the choice to confront the uncomfortable truth about yourself and about the world, was the first act of sovereignty. Each step you took to dismantle your former programming, to forge your new self, to master your emotions and apply the silent strategies, was an act of conquest. Now, the final command is simple and relentless. Govern your inner kingdom with the steadfastness of a wise prince. Allow no emotion, no impulse, no outside opinion to dictate your actions without your conscious authorization. Be the absolute master of your own emotional universe. Govern your interactions with the external world. Employ silence, observation, calculated indifference, and the management of appearances as your tools. Don't play the games of others. Force them to play yours or to withdraw. Govern your path through the pandemonium. Use your rationality and strategic persistence to navigate adversity, transforming obstacles into opportunities and setbacks into lessons. You are no longer the unlocked. Safe. You are the fortress. You are no longer the pawn. You are the strategist. You are no longer the victim of your emotions. You are their sovereign. This is your power. It was not given to you. You forged it in the fire of self-discipline and uncomfortable truth. Now, live according to it. Each day is a new opportunity to reinforce your dominion, to refine your strategies, to become even more unshakable. The world may continue to seek the old, predictable version of you, but they will find only the cold calm and the analytical gaze of the being you have become. And in that realization, they will see not only your transformation, but the proof of the power that resides in those who dare to govern themselves. You have heard the truth. You have felt the weight of your former fragility and the promise of your newfound strength. The journey to becoming the sovereign of yourself began with the courage to face the mirror without illusions. Now, with clear vision and the tools in hand, the real work begins. If this message resonated with you, if the spark of transformation has been ignited, this is only the beginning. There is more wisdom to be unearthed, more strategies to be mastered. To further this journey of power and self-mastery, subscribe to this channel. Leave a like so this message reaches others who are also seeking sovereignty over themselves. And different? Tell us in the comments. From which city, which state, which country are you building your inner empire? Your location is just a dot on the map. Your power, forged from within, knows no bounds.